In this video, we will set up for our landscape scenery project, and really any other project that you might do where you want to follow the rule of thirds as you're kind of setting up an image. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new image, or I'm sorry, a new project. So I'm going to File, New. I'm going to name this thing, if you have a specific piece of landscape that you're doing, maybe you want to give this, a different name, but I'm going to go ahead and name that. As far as size goes, I want letter. I want the units to be in inches, and I want the width to be 11 and height to be 8. So I'm going to flip-flop these two. The easiest way to do that, right now this is on portrait, meaning like a picture of a person. I'm going to switch this over to landscape because that's exactly what we're making. So the width is now 11, height is 8.5 inches. I named it, and the size is letter. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. First thing I want to do before I even introduce a picture to this project, I want to create the lines for the rule of thirds. To do that, I'm going to take a rectangle, and I'm going to give this a color just so it's easier for us to see. I am going to start right on the corner of this artboard. So to do that, I currently have smart guides, those little green, bright green little words and lines that pop up. I have that turned off, so I'm going to view smart guides to turn that on. So I'm going to go right to this little corner here. I'm going to click and let go because I want to tell it what size rectangle I want to have. Now I already did this before, so these numbers are going to be what we end up using, but let me explain to you kind of where I got these numbers from. What we're going to do, we are going to break our screen into 3 chunks vertically and 3 chunks horizontally. So what I did is I took the whole length of this paper, 11 inches, and I divided that by 3. You end up with 3.6 repeating inches. So that's how wide I made this rectangle. It's going to end up being a third of my screen across. I did the same thing for the height. This is 8.5 inches, so when you divide that by 3, you end up with 2.8. So what this looks like is this. That is basically 1/9 of my screen. It's going a third of the way across this way, and a third of the way up and down. I'm going to take that rectangle I made, and I'm going to copy that. I'm going to hold Option, and I'm going to drag it and put it in this lower corner. And what we've just established actually is where all 9 of these little blocks are, and I'll show you how this works now. So first thing I'm going to do, I want to put little lines in here so that we can see this rule of thirds thing in action. Again, if you're not familiar with the rule of thirds, watch the video on rule of thirds. It'll kind of explain what that is. So I'm going to go to View, Rulers, Show Rulers. I'm going to need those in order to make these guidelines that we're going to make, they're called. So now that I can see these rulers here and here, I'm going to drag out some lines from these rulers. If I want a horizontal line going side to side, I go to the ruler that's horizontal. I go on that ruler itself, I drag with my mouse, and I'm going to create a line. I'm going to move that down to this first block. I'm going to do the same thing again, moving this way. Now I'm going to do the same thing from the side here to create vertical lines here and here. So now my document is now broken into 9 chunks. Now if we were to print, these light blue lines would not show up, only these rectangles would. I'm going to go ahead now and get rid of these rectangles. I don't need those. Next thing I'm going to do, these guides, currently I can select them and kind of move them and mess them up. I don't want to be able to do that. I want to keep these exactly where they're at. So I'm going to go to View, Guides, Lock Guides. You also notice after you're done doing this step where we're putting the pictures in, I can also hide these guides. If I don't want to delete them altogether from my layers window, I can just hide them, turn them all off so that they're not in my way, so I'm not looking at them. But right now I'm going to go ahead and lock those guides. So now I can't, even if I try, grab and move these guides around. So again, my screen is now broken up into those 9 chunks that we want. I want to try to put some interesting parts of my picture along these focal points here, which your eyes naturally go to, whether these lines are here or not. And I also want to try to make some of the lines from my image follow these lines here. And that'll again help. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an image that I, let's say, want to use for this project. I'm going to go ahead and drag it onto this document. So at this point, if you don't have an image, you could pause this, go on Google Images, find one that you want. Make sure if you go into Google Images that when you're searching for an image, you click on it and then save the biggest copy of that thing. That's the one that you'll want on your desktop, is the biggest copy that you can find. So anyway, now that I put this on here, you notice that when it's selected, it has an X over top of it. Anytime you see that X, very first thing you're going to want to do is have it selected, and hit embed. That will get rid of that X. That's just kind of the way that the document is in there is a little bit better for us now, and we will be able to kind of have that whether I open this up on another computer or not. If that X is on here and you take your document over to somebody else's computer, that picture won't be there anymore. So it's nice to do that embed thing. Alright, next what I want to do is I want to start stretching this picture out, because here's my sheet of paper. Clearly it's not going to fill the whole thing. When we're done, we are going to turn this picture off, but I'm going to be missing some like major details that'll be tough for me to kind of make up and fill in on my own. So I'm going to make this picture bigger. So I'm going to hold shift as I drag just from the corner. I don't want to use the sides or the bottom. I want to use the corners and hold shift, because that, if you notice, is keeping it in perspective. I really don't have a choice here. It's going to be forced to stay in perspective. Now what I want to do is I want to start looking at some focal points and kind of start aligning things. So I would love to get this horizon on this focal point if I can get it to work out for me. So I'm going to just keep making this a little bigger. If it goes a little bit blurry, that's okay, because remember, when we're done, we are going to turn this thing off and we won't even see the original picture. So I'm kind of liking that, actually. So now I have the horizon lined up on that line. I have this post kind of lined up on this focal point. I kind of like that, but I also maybe play and try seeing what I like with that. And again, now I'm starting to lose a lot of these mountains on my sheet of paper, so I think I kind of like it the other way. Now these rules also, they're not like steadfast, you have to follow this rule to a T kind of things. It's just they help, they're suggestions. So let's say I want to get more of the sky in this picture. I still have this vertical alignment with this post, so I'm still kind of following this rule, even if I do something like that. Even though the horizon's not necessarily on that 2/3 line, I need to decide kind of what do I want in the picture. Do I want more sky? Do I want more water? I could even go as far as kind of bringing this all the way down here and have more sky shown and have less dock shown, just a little bit of the dock. But I think for what I would probably want, I'd probably do something along these lines myself. And again, totally just a personal choice for you guys. I'm kind of cheating a little bit, but I wanted a little bit more of that sky shown, so maybe I kind of go a little bit more even like that. So that's what this process looks like. It's not like a perfect thing where you're going to get it on the first try. You keep nudging it around, trying different things till you find out what you want. And again, that's a lot of kind of making anything in graphic design, is just try until you get it the way you want it to be. So that is kind of setting up this document. So we created a new document. We made these guidelines, they're called, and I placed my picture. Again, the last thing I may want to do, now that I'm done with those guidelines, I may want to go to View, Guides, and hide those guides. And now I'm ready to start kind of working on this project, so that'll be the next video.